So for my presentation, I chose The Gates of Paradise by Lorenzo Gilberti. And as you can see right here, this is Lorenzo Gilberti. And the doors were made for the baptistry of Florence. And this baptistry was located in the heart of Florence and was very important to the history of Florence. So back then, the baptistry was used by many of the citizens to be baptized. And the doors were actually funded by the Wool Manufacturing Guild in Florence. So Gilberti did not start sculpting these doors until 1425 for the west wing of the baptistry, but because of their beauty, he decided they would be hung in the east wing, which faced the cathedral in Florence, which was of much importance as well. The Gates of Paradise, as you can see here, this is the baptistry in Florence, and these doors were actually named the Gates of Paradise by Michelangelo. He said that the gates of paradise looked almost as if they could be the gates to heaven. So the doors themselves actually have 10 squares, and each square depicts a different story from the Old Testament from the Hebrew Bible. So as you can kind of tell here in these photos, the doors are actually very large. They're 17 feet tall, and each square holds a different story from the Bible. So starting from the top left and going as if you're reading, it starts with the creation of Adam and Eve and the fall of Adam and Eve, the flood and the drunkenness of Noah, the story of Jacob and Esau, Moses receiving tablets of law, David and Goliath, the murder of Abel and Cain, Abraham sacrificing Isaac, Joseph being sold into slavery by his brothers, Joshua and the fall of his brother Horatio, and Solomon and the story of the Queen of Sheba. So here we see in the top left square of the door, it depicts the story of Adam and Eve, and you can really see the detail, and each square actually almost tells a different story. And going back a slide, the frame of the door and the side pieces are actually people from the Bible and biblical prophets. And there's also many different plants and animals on the sides and frames of the door as well. And then in this square, we had David and Goliath, and you can see the incredible detail of the story in each different place that you look in the square. You can see that there's a different scene from the story. And then we have the story of the twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. So you can see, going from left to right, how the story progresses from the Bible, but also depicts many different scenes from the story in one square. In each of these squares, Gilberti depicts a deep and real space, and he makes it almost look as though it's real. And he made it look almost as if you're looking through a window into the stories. Uses linear perspective and orthogonal lines to provide a viewpoint. So from the front of each square, it almost looks as if the characters are 3D. And then as you move back into the further back in, Gilberti uses linear perspective and a focus towards the middle of the squares to portray a scene that almost is real. And he provides a viewpoint in each of his squares, and he does this by using the front characters almost look as if they're 3D, and then as you move back into the scene, they get thinner and thinner to where it's almost as if it's a drawing. So he gives an illusion of depth and reality into the small square and can tell most of the story within the small space that he had to work with. And unfortunately, the doors were dismantled in 1943. In 1943 because of the World War II bombings, and they were hidden until they were put back up again in 1948. And again, unfortunately, they were dismantled in 1966 because of a flood and sent to be repaired. And in 1990, the doors were taken off and put up in display on a museum and replaced with a replica. These doors have been praised by many artists because of the amazing workmanship by Gilberti, and these doors were considered a Renaissance icon and is one of the most famous. These doors have been praised by many artists because of the amazing work and is actually considered a Renaissance icon. And in this image, you can really see how tall the doors actually were, 17 feet tall, and incredible. And there's my citation.